Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jarret Johnson, and this is a special edition of the Gridiron Report, perhaps the last edition of my main takeaways from head coach Matt Wells' game week press conference, Monday press conference, which actually leads me to my first question. This is or my first topic, my first main takeaway. This is the season finale. It's the home finale. It's senior day. And possibly the last game of the season, period. Because, like I said, it's senior day. They're celebrating 17 seniors, okay? And several of them could return. I asked Coach Wells about that fact, if he had an idea how many guys would be returning or who would be moving on. He said they have somewhat of an idea, but most of the guys are still making decisions, and so we won't be able to come to a conclusion on who's staying or who's going based on the senior day celebration, because they're just going to honor all 17 of them. Whether they're coming back, they don't know, or if they're for sure moving on. So that's one thing. Another thing is, like I said, we don't know if this is the last game. We know it's the last game of the regular season. We know it's the last home game, but there is a possibility for a bowl game. I think I actually saw something in Dallas Morning News of Texas Tech playing SMU in a mid to lower tier bowl as being a projection. So I asked Coach Wells, hey, is a bowl game still on the table? And he said he hasn't been told either way. He hasn't been told no. I asked if they won this week. I assume if they lose and they only have 3 wins, they're probably not going to go to a bowl game. But there is no cap. You can, I guess, theoretically, Kansas, even if they go winless, could go to a bowl game. Obviously, you don't think that's going to happen, but the bottom line is, I think to take away from that, if Tech wins, a bowl game is still on the table, but it's not for certain. I think if they had beaten Oklahoma State and then beaten Kansas to get to 5-5, you could almost, book tickets somewhere anyways. But if they win, they still might go to a bowl game. So we don't know. That's up in the air. We also had some injury updates, kind of. Rico Jeffers and TJ Vasher both had knee injuries. Coach Wells was asked about them and said he's not sure yet, basically, of their status. We'll have to see. There's a couple of veterans for you there. And then Xavier White is day-to-day with a shoulder injury, but Wells says he does expect him to play. So that's meaningful there. Xavier White's been good, when healthy. Him and Sarajic have been quite the 1-2 punch, but then you still have Taj Brooks, Chadarius Townsend. You still have some options there. So you'd like to see Xavier be able to play, but if he can't go, the Red Raiders, assuming they're not hit by COVID or something at that position, they should have some options at running back. Speaking of injuries, Donovan Smith came up because I asked this for the fans because I didn't think that he was really available or anything, but fans were speculating because of a tweet he said, coming soon, and he had pictures of him at practice. And so, Coach Wells had said he had shoulder surgery, he's out for the season. This was, back in October. And that he was hoping to get him back in the spring, at least in limited duty. But I asked for the fans, because, hey, we had access to Coach Wells, why not? Honestly, I didn't have a lot of questions about the matchup against Kansas this week, just being real with y'all. So I thought I'd ask that question, and he said, nah. He actually said he'd have to check Donovan's Twitter. And I said, well, I'm not trying to get him in trouble. I just, fans were curious. And he said, no, nothing's been changed to the timeline of him being out for the season. He thought those pictures were probably from the summer or something. And that, the hope is still to get him back in the spring. I also asked about, the play of Caleb Rogers. I thought he played pretty good. And the offensive line obviously played well as a whole. You don't rack up over 600 yards against a defense like Oklahoma State's, put up that 44 points without the offense playing well. And they certainly did. And he said, the offensive line playing well. And he said they certainly did. He mentioned, Caleb played well. He also said that Ethan Card's going to play more this upcoming week at left tackle. He said Josh Berger had his best game at right tackle. That's a guy, he's a senior grad transfer that you hope returns, because I wouldn't have a problem with him being your right tackle again next year. I think he's been good enough. Now, left tackle, they got to come on in that position. But I think Berger, for the most part, has been solid. And Coach also mentioned Dawson Deaton, Jack. Those guys played really well as well. And like I said, the fruit bears that out. The fact 44 points over 600 yards of total offense, a lot of success both through the air and on the ground. I mean, they played very well on offense. In Stillwater on Saturday, this was an interesting note to me that I didn't know this, to be honest, but Tech had two coaches out, two staff members out because of COVID. Couldn't be at the game last weekend. It was offensive line Steve Farmer, offensive line coach, and then strength and conditioning coach Dave Scholes. And so, John Canova, who's assistant, he's not like one of the 10 main assistants, but he has been an assistant offensive line coach for a while with Texas Tech. He kind of took over in terms of the game day duties, and obviously, like I just said, the offensive line played well. He did well. He did a good job. And then Schultz was, I think, the way Coach Wells said, and you think of a strength and conditioning coach as being more of like off season or even during the week or whatever, but they actually do a lot on game day. They really do. And Coach Wells, definitely made note of that was a big loss for him that Scholes was not available on Saturday. So hopefully they get healthy, everything's fine with them, and they get better and they can return to duty there. And then finally, I wanted to ask about this because he mentioned recruiting and guys possibly showing up in January. So I asked him, I said, Coach, you have some highly rated guys according to 24/7 Sports on the commitment list. Of course, you can't name them, but we have early signing period coming up soon. How many do you expect to sign in the early signing period? He said all of them. And that half of them, 5, which I think is the limit you could do, 5 he expects to enroll early and be in the spring. So that is really good. 5 of the high school guys that you really want to, some of them you're probably going to need to play early. You've had a lot play early this year and play well. So if they hit on these guys like they think they have, and like I think they have, then getting them in the spring is key. Baron Morton obviously is the first guy that stands out. If he has any chance of being like a day one starter for you as a true freshman quarterback, then he needs to be there in the spring and have a very good spring. So that was a big update for me. Of course, we will follow up. We've already confirmed with several of the recruits, but we will follow up with all of them and figure out when they're signing, if they're signing in the early period, and when they're expected to be on campus and enroll at Texas Tech. So that's exciting stuff. We'll have all that on InsideTheRedRaiders.com, of course. So with that, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.